Hello everyone and welcome to Now You're Playing With Power, a Nintendo podcast. My name is NBZ and we are up to episode 15. That's a good chunk. I feel like we are now in a stride, as it were. And,
I feel like it's now a segment in my life.
It is, yeah. It's one of those eras that...
It's become an era.
It has become an era. So, joining me, as you have just heard, is my co-host. It is Bally.
Hi NBZ, E3 Hype Train!
We're on the E3 Hype Train, we're getting there. Chugga 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 choo. And we have a lot to talk about. So today's show, Bally, why don't you give us a bit of a layout of what we're going to be looking at?
Yeah, so first up we're going to give you our impressions of a very big title that we've both been playing since it came out just 3 days ago.
Yeah.
And we've both played about 10, 11, 12 hours each. And that game is obviously Mario Kart.
Yes.
And then after that, we're going to get onto a bit of listener mail. And finally, we're going to give you guys some of our E3 predictions.
That's a very packed show. We have a lot to get through, so let's just kick it off, I guess. So what we have been playing this week comprises of basically Mario Kart. I've played some other stuff, but this is the main thing we want to talk about. We want to devote a whole segment to it, so that's what we're going to do. And I'm sure a lot of you people who were interested in the Wii U and were kind of teetering on the edge of buying one may, well, be very interested here, because Mario Kart 8 is the big title that's pushing people over the edge. Bally, do you think that it's worthy of being, that kind of landmark game?
I feel I'm looking through tinted lenses because I'm a massive Mario Kart fan. I own every single one apart from the Super Nintendo version, and I've loved all of them apart from the GBA version. And I think that for me to say, absolutely, you have to get this game, and you have to buy a Wii U now because of this game, I think would be false, to be honest. I would do that, but I don't think everyone's me. If you're a Mario Kart fan and you've been waiting for it to come out before you get a Wii U, then I absolutely think it'll tick all the boxes.
Yeah.
But if you're not into Mario Kart and you don't like Mario Kart, I wouldn't argue that this is a Mario Kart that is easy to get into, if that makes sense. I don't know.
Well, we'll talk more about it. We've got a lot to talk about here. So, I guess as a jumping off point, let's just talk about first impressions. And I think the biggest thing to discuss when talking about first impressions of this game is the visuals, right? Just how good it looks, how colorful it is, how much it pops, and how smooth the game runs and all that stuff. So, what did you think when you first popped it in and it loaded up on your screen? How are your feelings towards the look of the game?
I'll be honest, they didn't actually impress me a whole lot instantly. Now, I should say I'm playing on quite a small HD TV, and yeah, they obviously the colors were popping and everything, but it wasn't until I'd played maybe a couple of GPs, gone back to look at tracks again, and then you gradually, for me at least, I've realized, wow, actually, the design, the look, the feel, the lighting effects, water effects, that kind of thing looks absolutely incredible. And it's such a new thing with Nintendo, this being Nintendo's first HD console, and obviously I've played mainly Nintendo games my whole life, and for me to now be experiencing all these HD games, it's really this is leading the way, I'd say, with the Nintendo HD games.
Yeah, it really looks so bright and colorful, and there are just these segments of courses which really stand out to me. I think especially anything that's water slicked just looks amazing. I can't remember what track it is, but there's a segment where you're on a muddy path which is curving upwards. I'm not sure if you can pick out what track that's from. But
do you know anything more about that track?
I think there's some underwater segments, and you come out of the water onto this mud-slicked track which goes into the sky. And that mud-slick track has these glistening water effects on it, and it just...
Is it the candy one?
No, it's not the candy one. I can't remember, but it's just one of those effects that looks so amazing and just it just jumps out to me. So that's like that was one of those moments where I was like, wow, this really does look like a fantastic game. But to me, what makes a game look good is not just the resolution, right? Resolution is one thing, and it does run in 1080p. I'm not sure if it's native 1080, it may be 720 upscaled, but it certainly looks the part. It's really how well it runs in terms of the frame rate, and this is smooth as butter. It is 60 frames per second, and I haven't tried it in local multiplayer. Apparently, if you go to more than 2 players, it drops down to 30, but even in 2 players, apparently it's a smooth 60, which is a great accomplishment. Have you noticed that, Bally? Do you feel that I'm not sure like how good you are at detecting how good the frame rate is, but do you feel the smoothness of it? Is what I'm kind of saying.
I feel the smoothness, but you're right. I have no idea what I'm looking for in terms of when frames drop, whether I would notice them or not. I read some reports actually that there were a few frames dropping for some people or something.
Well, to be honest, that happens in every game. Like, I know people are just nitpicking, and there's all this bullshit war going on, like, oh, PS4, 1080p, 60 frames a second. This bullshit is everywhere, right? And people are just getting crazy about it. But like, even on my PC, like games that run at 60 frames a second, they'll drop down to like 58, 59 sometimes, just here and there. That's just how it works, you know? You can't, I mean, some games do lock to 60, but, you know, most of the time that's going to happen, so... but yeah, you think it looks the part for the smoothness as well.
Yeah, no, it absolutely does. And just while we're on visuals, I'd say that they're also enhanced greatly, in my opinion, by incredible track design. And I don't mean like the layout of the track, I mean the stuff around the track. So my personal favorite course is Thwomp Ruins.
Yeah.
And it's just... If you've not seen screenshots or at least video footage of this track, it just looks incredible. And the idea of it being like this, it's very kind of, not, I want to say Indiana Jones almost. It's
very kind of like Inca temple.
Yeah,
vibe.
It's like Aztec maybe. I don't know. It's very, they just do it really well, and they make it look like the Thwomps have been around for, you know, thousands of years, and now we're driving around on their course or whatever, and yeah, it's done really well in my opinion.
I think that Mario Kart tends to take these kind of real world concepts and put a Mario spin on them. There are courses which they draw from the series, like the cloud level, where you're drawing from Mario 3 and the airships, and then there's the galaxy music that's put over that. But I do feel a lot of the time that they're going for much more original ideas based on real-world concepts, like the club level with all the music, beatboxing and everything going on, and Thwomp Ruins, like you said, is very much reminiscent of like an old temple. Do you think that do you like that kind of aspect of the series, or would you prefer more kind of themed around old Mario game kind of stuff?
I don't know. I mean, the great one of my favorite Mario Karts. I don't know if it's my favorite versus this or not. To be honest, I've not decided yet. Is Double Dash,
right?
And Double Dash tried so hard for all the tracks to have a common theme. And it was much better than this game, in my opinion, at creating the Mario world. Right. And then while you're driving on tracks and in that game, you can actually see in some aspects other tracks from the game in the distance. Yeah. And that was something that they copied and had in common with Sunshine. And on top of that, they had areas from Sunshine, like Peach Beach is very reminiscent of Sunshine, and it's got the Delfino, I can't remember what they call, like Pintas or something. The Delfino people. So I feel like Mario Kart 8 is each course feels like a little world of its own. It doesn't necessarily feel like they're linked in any way, to be honest.
Yeah, there's no real connecting tissue between them.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that's a downside, but I think that the way Double Dash did it, they really nailed it. And they could have maybe have done that for this game, because ultimately you're going to play other Mario games, and you're never going to see Thwomp Ruins again, most likely. I mean, for all I know, the next Mario game is going to be completely different again, and I quite like a continuity of the way that courses are laid out, like I was saying about Double Dash.
Right. It's more the tip of the hat than anything, you know, and that's why people love Smash Brothers, because it doesn't just tip the hat; it throws it off the head and cuts off someone's, moustache with it or some nonsense. Like it goes crazy, right? So yeah. So yeah, the visuals are great. That's a fantastic part of it. Let's talk about the modes. Let's get down into the real nitty gritty of the single player content, which is very bare bones. I'm going to be honest, like there is nothing really groundbreaking or new here, and there really hasn't been anything like that since the DS. I feel like 3DS and now on Wii U, they are sticking with the same kind of systems they've always have. So you have the standard race mode Grand Prix, where you go through and race, and then you have battle mode, and you have like a versus and time trial. And there hasn't been anything differentiating that since the DS's mission mode.
I loved the mission mode in the DS version. Having bosses. Some of the missions were obviously very bog standard and basic, but it's still really great to have them. And I might get in right now that I 3-starred every single mission in the DS version.
Sure, nut job.
And that proves just how much I was into it. And I really loved the bosses, and you actually have to like push the bosses off some stages. One of them you just raced a Wiggler or something like that. So they definitely could have done something, just anything, because at the moment there's just nothing there. It's just the Grand Prix. You can't the fact that in every Mario Kart game, apart from this is where the GBA version is saving itself. To my knowledge, every single Mario Kart game, apart from the GBA version, you can't just go into a single track and race against other players and play it. And that's just a really bog standard feature that is kind of weird that Mario Kart doesn't have.
So yeah, I really feel that they need to be doing something more unique. Like a lot of people reference Diddy Kong Racing, right? And how that had this kind of open world thing where you'd go around and you would race bosses in the course of the single player mode. And I would love if they just incorporated that as like a campaign, as a Mario Kart campaign, and keep the Grand Prix, because you can still have that as a bonus thing, but I would love it if they, did something different here, right? It's the grind. That's what we've been referring to it as. The Grand Prix is the grind, and you want to just get it done and out the way so that you can unlock stuff and get online and start playing the real Mario Kart game, which is having fun with people over the internet.
I mean, look at a game like F-Zero GX. That game has so many single-player modes that you don't even have to touch the multiplayer. That game doesn't even have online multiplayer, and I've sunk so many hours into that game, and I'm still nowhere near completing the story mode because it's so well done. And they have massive cutscenes, they have great original challenges, and often tracks that you can't even play on in the Grand Prix that they've uniquely made for the story mode and stuff like that. And I'm not saying Mario Kart needs a whole story, but it'd be so nice to just have a series of missions that were like a campaign, like you said, NBZ, that you could just work your way through and have a really great offline single-player experience.
Yeah. So overall, I just don't think that Grand Prix mode is a good one. It becomes frustrating more than anything because you just want to finish it and get it over and done with, but the AI will screw you over at the very last. As I was telling you earlier, I just had an experience where I came first in every race, got to the last one 10 seconds before the line, and didn't come in first. I came in like third, and as a result of that, I don't get the 3 stars for going through that thing, which it's such a bad system. It's a terrible system. And it's not fun. I think that's the fundamental issue. It's not fun. It's not a fun single-player mode. But of course, there's some other stuff. There's time trial, which I think remains generally the same, right? Have you done any of the time trial stuff?
I've done a tiny bit just to test out a few of the cars, and yeah, it's a great feature. They've got the histograms that Nintendo have done in a few of their online games, like Pikmin 3, so you can compare your times with how the rest of the world did. You can download the top ghosts, any specific ghosts of friends and things like that. And
I think they still have like developer ghosts and stuff from people who made the game, so that's pretty cool.
So, but it's not changed a whole lot from the Wii version, but that was one thing I felt the Wii version did very well, was the ghosts and time trials and the online features within that, and replays, like, for example.
Yeah, those are always good, and it was in Mario Kart 7 as well. When you street past people, you'd get their ghost data. So, I like it. It's a neat feature. Not, I won't really use it that much, but it's appealing to some. So, I think the last thing we should really cover is battle mode, which we did do, and this kind of segues into online, right? Everyone has said the battle mode is fucked in this game, and I agree 100%. It is awful, terrible, and is not redeemable in any single way. So, Bally, do you want to explain what the hell they've done with battle mode?
I have no idea. I don't understand why they've done this. There are no specific battle stages anymore. It's literally just, I think, 8 to 10 tracks that they've copied from the Grand Prix, and they've just said, right, there's the track. Now battle. There's no race, to just battle, and you start at a random bit on the track, and you just drive around in a loop, looking for people, trying to find them with your green shell, and like it just takes hours to find them, and it's horrible, and I really don't like it at all. And I'm not the biggest fan of battle mode in any case, but for example, the GameCube version, which I think is the best battle mode out of all the Mario Karts I've played, had 3 different features. It had separate courses, and it was really simple. It was really fun, and it doesn't even feel like they had to put a lot of development into that battle mode, but it was still a really nice feature. And the fact that they've gone backwards on battle mode for this version seems really weird.
What this game really feels like to me in general is that they rushed a lot of areas of it. I think what they concentrated on more than anything was getting the visuals and the frame rate and everything up to scratch, and then shirking on the rest because they just didn't have the time to do it. You know, people talk about how everyone had such troubled development cycles during the beginning of the PS3 and 360 era because of the HD and because of the new assets that had to be made and created and everything. And Nintendo, we know, have struggled with that just as people did back then. And so what I think has happened is they needed to get this game out. Wii U is just on life support at this point. They need something, and that's what they focused their efforts into. They focused it into making a good-looking game, and didn't have time to create arenas for battle mode, and just decided, hey, we can't do anything about it, let's just kind of leave it on the side. That's what it really feels like to me, and that's general across the board for a lot of the stuff here. Although when it comes to online, I think they have done a good job, and it is definitely the best online in Mario Kart up to this point. So Bally, what do you think is the best aspect of the online that they've implemented?
Just how solid it is, and specifically the tournament feature is really great. We did a tournament last night, and obviously you have the luxury of having some fans that you can drum up onto a stream and then say, right, let's all get on in this tournament and have a fun time.
Yeah.
A fun day. And so I think that feature is really great. And obviously, if you don't have a YouTube channel like you do, NVZ, you can probably do a similar thing on someone else's stream, or perhaps in a forum or something. And it's just a really easy feature.
Sure, like IGN has, their one they were running.
I mean, you don't have to be friends with all these people. You just start the tournament. Each tournament has its own code. You give them the code and you say, come on down. You play race between these times, and you just race, and there's great customizable options for that based on items and tracks, the number of tracks, stuff like that, and it's just really, really well done.
Yeah, you can even turn off items altogether, which some people might want to do, because the items in this game, we'll get to talking about the items,
okay.
But the rest of the online experience is pretty cool. I echo your sentiment that it's really smooth and seamless and integrated very well. There's no kind of lagging out. We did have a couple communication errors at points when it was just me and you jumping into worldwide and stuff. That did happen from time to time, but I guess that's just kind of server overload at the moment. It is like opening weekend, right? Yeah. And lots of people are going to be jumping into the online straight away. So yeah, again, their kind of system of tracking you online is not something I really like at all. The point system, which is very arbitrary and kind of meaningless, and doesn't really get you anything, to be honest. Apart from maybe, I remember like in the Wii version, you got like a gold wheel or something, right? If you got above a certain number of points.
I thought the gold wheel and the stars on that version were to do with what you'd achieved in single player.
It might be. I honestly can't remember.
All right.
In that case, it makes the online even more meaningless, to be honest. Those
Yeah,
points.
I agree that that's a bit of a downside.
Yeah.
One thing that I guess they could introduce, I don't know if they might announce it, is there were like Nintendo not tournaments but like competitions on the Wii version that they ran for a while.
Yeah, they did. I remember, and those were kind of similar to Mission Mode, right, on DS.
Yeah, they were similar to Mission Mode, but only in online multiplayer, and you'd have a certain time period to try and complete this little mission. You could see all the top times, and you could compare your times, and I really got into that for a few months when the Wii version came out, and it'd be nice if they introduced something like that, and I could definitely get into that.
Sure. I think all that is left on the online side is Mario Kart TV and the YouTube integration, right? So Mario Kart TV is this feature where you can basically save replays of some races that you've had either online or in single player, and then go through and like kind of edit them and slow down them and have a look at them in detail, and then upload a video to your YouTube account straight from the Wii U, which seems really like a cool idea. Bally, you've messed a little bit with the Mario Kart TV stuff. What do you think of it?
It's pretty cool. It's nice when you've sniped someone with a green shell successfully, and you can
Yeah.
rewatch that in very incredible slow motion, and the HD graphics seriously look amazing when you do the slow motion. Likewise, they look really good when you do. So there's gravity in this game that we've not mentioned yet, but when you're in a gravity section of a course and you bump into someone, you both do a little spin and you both get a bit of a boost. That effect looks incredible in Mario Kart TV when you do a slow motion. One downside of Mario Kart TV, well, this is a big downside, is that there's really not many editing options. You can't move the camera, you can't edit. It's just you're select. They call it an editor, but you're just selecting different highlights. It's not like there's a timeline that you can edit or even change the camera or even do anything really. It's very primitive, to be honest.
It's extremely primitive.
Yeah.
As people who both of us know how to edit, and you know how you can have very much control over a piece of video. This is taking a lot of control away from you and saying, like, we'll control the camera angles. We'll just let you say how long this clip is going to be. Do you want it to be 30 seconds? Do you want it to be 45 seconds? Which bits do you want to highlight? Do you want to highlight you hitting people or whatever? And they kind of take control of that. And added to that, they don't really allow you to put the slow motion bits in your finished video. That's just kind of a feature for yourself to have a look at when you're watching it. I really would have liked it if they'd allowed you to tamper with the slow motion and kind of give you a bit more hands-on in the editing room, but that's kind of a thing that I could do myself. Having a capture device, I can create that kind of content on my own, but to the casual observer, it's not going to be something they can do.
I mean, ultimately the Wii and GameCube versions both had the ability where after a race you can just say replay, and you can watch the race back through with the camera on you, and that's basically all this is doing to some degree.
Yeah, I guess it's just making it a bit more fancy, right?
Yeah.
It's just kind of adding a few new bells and whistles. There is the YouTube integration, which I can talk about because I have used it to try and upload some stuff to YouTube. And all I'm going to say is that it is a very slow process, and you can't actually edit the video title on the Wii U gamepad or anything like that. Takes a long time and is ultimately just a kind of neat thing that maybe you do one-off, but nothing that is a feature to be really excited about, in my opinion. As a YouTuber, as someone who makes content, uploads content, it's not the best way of delivering it. So it's there. It's cool for people who like to try things out like that, but ultimately that's kind of it. So yeah, online experience surprisingly really good, and to be honest, for me it gives me a lot of hope for Smash Brothers, right?
Yeah, but we kind of said that about the Wii, and Mario Kart came out. It was seamless and amazing online, and then Smash Brothers came out, and it just wasn't, and it was horrible. And
Yeah. There is still
I'm gonna hold my breath for Smash Brothers.
Fair enough,
online,
fair enough.
but
Well,
see.
you did mention the mechanic of the anti-grav, which we haven't actually come to yet, so let's talk about it a little bit.
The new features.
Right, so a lot of this game involves, going upside down and on walls and everything. And, from impressions and previews that people were writing and talking about on podcasts before the game came out, like E3 showing and everything, people were saying, like, it doesn't make a huge difference. Like, you don't really feel like you're upside down or on a wall or anything. And then recently, when the game came out, I saw a tweet from Guillaume from RFN.
I saw this one as well.
And he said that, he feels like there was a real change in the game from when it was shown at E3 to the final release, and how it actually now feels very different when you're driving on walls. And I would agree with him on that sentiment. I never played, obviously, the preview builds or anything, but there is a difference. You do feel, especially Thwomp Ruins is a good example. There's lots of side wall stuff happening there. You do feel like you have to kind of tip your head almost and control the game in a slightly different way to get around it. But there are the benefits, obviously, to going on the wall, like the boost and everything. So it kind of tips and balances there. How do you feel it changes the gameplay, Bally?
I like it. It changes it a bit, but not a drastic. It doesn't reinvent Mario Kart in any way, I don't think. And I like that. I think that it's a nice feature. It's a nicer feature than gliding or being underwater, in my opinion. I think that like you said, Thwomp Ruins, a number of other tracks, including perhaps Toad's Turnpike, Toad Harbor. There's a lot of sideways walls that aren't upside down, they're just sideways, and they feel the most different, I'd say.
Right,
there are a number of upside down areas where the thing that is making you feel upside down is the environment rather than the camera. And I enjoy both. I think that the upside down parts in courses like Mario Circuit, Shy Guy Falls, really nice. Because you see people at the side of the course celebrating, and they're like upside down, and you're like, whoa, okay, right.
Yeah.
And you're driving past normally, and it works well. It really shows off how lovely the graphics look, and at the same time provides a bit of a gameplay difference.
I would kind of compare it to being on a roller coaster. For me, especially the first roller coaster I ever went on when I went upside down, it didn't feel like I was going upside down, but you do have that sensation. So I do kind of feel like it's similar to that, where
that's a good comparison.
Where the camera doesn't really show that you're upside down, but if you are kind of paying attention to the environment around you and the external things going on, then you will realize, yes, in fact, you are in a weird position. So that's kind of what I thought of.
And likewise, when a roller coaster tilts on its side, you very much know that you are tilted on your side. And to some degree, Mario Kart's the same.
Yeah, it's an apt comparison, I feel. So it's cool. It's a neat mechanic, and as you said before, there's this whole idea of getting boosts by bumping into people when you're on the anti-grav sections, and there's some bumpers, right, which you can use for boosting as well. In my opinion, I think those aren't actually super helpful. Like, it gives the illusion of a boost, but I don't think it actually propels you forward that much. Do you have the same experience there?
It doesn't feel like a ton, I agree, but I know that from reading things, it does speed you up. As do coins, apparently, but often feeling the added speed that coins give you is quite difficult to quantify as well.
Right,
so
because that's a gradual thing. And,
but it's comparable in the sense that it's a tiny little boost that it's not obvious when you get it, but in reality, if you did a time trial, it does actually have a tiny effect.
Right. Yeah. Well, we have some quick hits at the end here that we should cover as well. So let's talk about the handling and how the game controls. Now, you know, Bally, that I am a massive complainer about Mario Kart, and I think that,
You're so sensitive when it comes to handling.
I'm very sensitive to handling, and in my opinion, the best handling Mario Kart game is Mario Kart 7 on 3DS. I think that is sublime, superb, and has a lot to do, I think, with the circle pad, because I like that as a mechanism for controlling the kart. it just gives me a level of nuance that I don't think an analog stick does, which is strange because an analog stick should give you much more kind of tweaking abilities, but I feel like the circle pad offers more to me in that situation. So when I first started the game, I hated the controls. I thought they were god awful, and to a degree I still think they're nowhere near as good as Mario Kart 7, but I think a lot of it depends on the kart that you choose and the customization that happens in that space, and kind of, you know, the way that you put all that stuff together. There's a huge different feeling between the bikes and the karts in this game. I'm not sure if you feel similarly on that end.
In terms of between the bikes and the karts, I've not raced with many of the bikes.
Right.
Although the little times I have tested them out, that some of them feel very, very different. And although I've not unlocked the Yoshi bike yet, which you've described as being very similar to the tight cornering bikes from the Wii version, I find the other bikes I've used are very different to the Wii version.
Sure.
But in terms of your opinion on how the game handles in general compared to 7 and perhaps the Wii version, I personally will keep beating the drum that I think if you pick any character with a standard kart between Wii, 7 and 8, in my opinion, they feel incredibly similar.
You are deluded.
I know I might be deluded. I hope some people out there agree with me. But between those three games, I think the karts, standard karts, none of the funky, crazy karts, the standard karts and the karts that feel like the standard karts, of which there are a few, between those three games, I think feel incredibly similar.
Yeah, definitely. On your end, anyway. So yeah, that's interesting. Let's talk about item balance and item nerfing.
Sure.
This is my worst sticking point with this game. I feel that. So I read an interesting article today, where the developers behind Mario Kart 7, Mario Kart 8, well, I guess 7 as well. They do all the Mario Karts. Said that they felt that Mario Kart 8 was the most balanced game in terms of item in the entire series, and I do not believe they could even entertain that thought, because holy fucking shit, this game has the worst item distribution and the worst item balance I've seen in any Mario Kart in history. It is atrocious, appalling, and just makes zero sense whatsoever. Okay, got that off my chest.
I actually agree entirely. The reason I'm less pissed off about it is because through sheer luck, I've been incredibly lucky as a result. For example, I was in last place. I received a bullet bill, which is actually quite rare in last place in this game. I got a bullet bill right up to about 7th. While the bullet bill was going off, I got hit by lightning, so I wasn't affected, everyone else was. And then when I was in 7th, I progressed even higher up to about 4th. I was in 4th, I got an item box, I got another bullet bill. And then
in 4th?
In 4th, and that bullet bill took me to 2nd. In the same way as I'm sure you're about to say, NBZ, normally when you're in last, you can even get green shells, single mushrooms, but the most common is a triple mushroom. You just seem to always get triple mushrooms.
Yeah, and on that point, I have been the victim of such circumstances. Not on one occasion, not on a few occasions, but on every goddamn occasion known to man. Oh, Lord. When you're in 12th and 11th, you do not want to be given a green shell, or 3 green shells even, or a mushroom, or even 3 mushrooms, because, my friends, that is not what helps you get back up the field. And we were kind of discussing earlier on how Mario Kart on Wii did a good job of kind of helping people when they were at the back, even though that game was a chaotic mess and 12 players was just horrible online and so many items thrown around and everything. If you were in last, you would get something good, god damn it, and it would help you to a degree, right? You would have a bullet bill which would push you forward, or you would get something like, I don't think the blue shell was running along the ground at that point, it was still through the air.
No,
but
it was through the air.
But you would get something, like the endless golden mushroom, something which would help things out, but not in this game. That is not how they have balanced it, and I hope to God that, like, they did in Mario Kart 7 patch the game so that that one glitch was removed. You know, people going up the mountain and skipping that area. They can patch the Wii U. This is a luxury they now have, having developed a console that is able to do such things. Please, Nintendo, please fix this, because it is disastrous. It is so bad, and I cannot stand it. It is really, really not well implemented. So
That's the thing, though. Like, a lot of the reviews so far don't seem to agree with you, or at least it doesn't seem to bother them.
right, and I think the problem with that is that the reviewers at the time didn't have a lot of people to play online with, and they weren't going to be getting into races which were full 12 people, and they weren't going to be having the similar experience. And especially the problem in single player is a lot of the time, if you're good at the game, you're going to be out in front and you're not going to notice any of the items. God damn it, I didn't know what the piranha plant was like or what it looked like in the game until I went online, because I'd never got one in the single player, because 50cc's I was cruising through and winning every race. So that's the issue. I feel like the reviewers aren't putting it out because they didn't have that experience. They weren't able to, which sucks, and it's ridiculous. It really is.
So we both agree that based on the item balance and a number of other reasons, that it's incredibly hard. This Mario Kart, more than any other, in my opinion, and I'm sure you agree, NBZ, it's the toughest one to get through the pack.
Right.
It's a massive slog, and I honestly think a massive reason as to why it's so tough to get through the pack is the star. So the star, which has been in every single Mario Kart, it normally gives you a speed boost, and while you're invincible while you have it, and you can run into players and it boshes them basically sideways. In this game, the star, first of all, it lasts all of about 4, 5, 6 seconds at the most, and secondly, you barely get a speed boost from it. There can be someone maybe 10, 20 meters in front of you, and there's no way you're going to catch them. You have to be right next to them to stand a chance of catching them. Your top speed increases a tiny bit when you get these stars, and there's just no way of catching anyone.
Yeah, and I feel that's across the board. The item nerf is pretty noticeable. Like, there are a lot of items which have been brought down a peg. The bullet bill you were mentioning, you think is a bit slower as well.
I think it moves slower. I think it lasts. Obviously, it depends on your position on how long it lasts. I don't think that how long it lasts has necessarily changed a lot, but it definitely feels like it moves slower.
Definitely. So yeah, I mean, overall, it's a bit of a mess on the item front, and I really hope that they do something about it, because
I was going to say, on the positive side of the item front, I think the 3 main new items are actually really good.
Yeah, they're cool. They're cool. I like the multi-purpose nature of the piranha plant, like how it'll attract you to coins, and it'll also fend off people around you. So it's a nice kind of.
And it gives you like a speed boost, like an alert.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. It gives you a little snap speed boost. So it's a very multi-purpose item, which I appreciate. I'd say the worst new introduction is the coin, which is just utterly. The bad thing about it is that it stops people at the front being able to get access to things like bananas and shells to hold behind them. Right, and I think that leads in nicely to what we're going to talk about double items, right? How in this game you can no longer hold an item behind you and then pick up a new one. You basically keep that item in your slot until you lose it, and then you can get a new one, which is an interesting change to the series. I'm not sure how you feel about it overall, Bally, though.
It doesn't bother me too much. I think that I'm constantly, because of the introduction of the super horn, which we've not mentioned yet, whenever I'm in first or high up, I'll absolutely try and get items to defend me, but say I'm about to run into sort of fresh boxes and I've got maybe a green shell or a banana behind me, I always get rid of it, because in the hope that I might get a super horn, because the risk reward for the super horn, although I don't know if it's finely balanced yet, I've not played enough, and I've only maybe successfully blocked about 4 blue shells using one. I think that the risk reward to get the super horn is like, you want it so much that you're willing to get rid of old items, because remember, the super horn can also fend you from red shells as well as pretty much any other item.
Yeah, definitely. It's again kind of fulfilling the multi-purpose idea, which I like. I like that they've done that with the new items, that they're not just single-use things, and that they have, multiple ways that you can use them. Like if you're in the middle of the pack and you get the super horn, you use that and you take out 4 or 5 people at once, which gives you a huge advantage.
Yeah.
Which is really cool. But yeah, that is an interesting change, and I don't know. I guess. It's okay. It's not too bad. It's not too bad. So, I feel like we've talked a lot here. I feel like we've covered a lot of bases on the good old Mario Kart. I'm not sure how much more we'll talk about. I'll definitely keep playing it. I'm going to go through and try and get some mirror mode unlocked and see what that's like, and see if there's any other tricks up the single player.
We'll definitely be doing some more tournaments.
Yeah, we'll try and do some more streaming of that. So that's cool.
All the NYPP fans get in there and strut your stuff.
Exactly. So that's I think we're going to close out this segment. We may well return to Mario Kart for a little bit more discussion, but I think we have talked it to goddamn death, and that's a thorough impression of the game. So we will be back after the break with your listener mail. So do not go anywhere. We will be right back. And we are back with some of your listener mail. So, leading up to E3, we got some good stuff from you guys. So thank you for sending all that in. And you can always be sure to send more listener mail in to our email address, which Bali shall so kindly recite.
NYPPQuestions@gmail.com.
As always. So, we're going to jump straight in here. And, Bali, you got the first email.
Yes, it's from Klex Yoshi. Dearest MBZ and Bali, first of all, I'd like to say that I enjoyed the cathartic experience of taking a hammer to my copy of PBR. The game literally has no purpose now. You can't even justify the Electivire Magmortar or Surfing Pikachu from that game because poor Evi hit his nadir right out the gate and Magmortar is just disappointing outright. Talking about the Pokemons from the NU side, my question isn't so much a Nintendo talking piece, but rather a you talking piece. I know you two have the childhood friend dynamic thing going on, and MBZ has a very stentorian sort of bravado to his voice from narrating so many Pokemon battles, but have you ever thought of stretching this some more from a two-man gig? Being from America and not having a great radio voice would make things a bit complicated for the both of you to schedule, but I think a third or even dare I say a fourth voice to bounce off would help the dynamic and give the both of you something to bounce off. Would you ever consider having guests or new panelists who are people you'd personally like to have on at some point?
Well, it's certainly a thing that I've thought about, and I don't know, it's something that would be cool to do. It's just a case of finding the people who would fit and who it would work with, and who, time schedule wise, who it would work with. Of course, the issue with doing a podcast with people from across the other side of the ocean is that time difference can be a problem, right? Because they're asleep and we're asleep at different times, and it kind of gets hard for scheduling stuff, and then also finding the right people. So I don't know, it'd be a good thing to do, definitely, because Bali and I, we do have that kind of dynamic going on, so we're not really, I guess, debating that much in terms of opinion. Though we do have contrasting opinion on a few things, right? Like,
oh yes,
of course with Mario Kart, but yeah, there's I don't know. I definitely think that there is room for something like that to happen. I'd like to have guests on and stuff, and no one I have in particular in mind at the moment. But what I am going to do basically this next week is have a segment with Nagi, Nara Nagi, who I know from YouTube, and we are probably just going to do some talk of Microsoft and Sony at E3. Just as a separate thing. I may put it out on the podcast feed, I might not, I haven't really decided yet, but that's going to be a thing, so maybe we'll have him on at some point. and see how that goes. But yeah, other than that, I haven't really thought of anything. Nothing that you thought of, Bally, though.
Not really. A few of my friends who are into a bit of Sony gaming have been interested, but like you said, it's just arranging the time and the place and how well they would fit, and I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of people I know from my time on the internet and on YouTube, but a lot of the people I know are really into Pokemon and not so much into games as a whole. They don't really have the knowledge and kind of the breadth of games that they've played to be able to have a discussion on the same level. So it's I don't know, it's something I'd like to do, but it would take me finding some new people and branching out and talking to different people. So, but there you go. That's something that may happen. We'll see.
So Elias has a couple of points. We'll tackle them one at a time, I guess. So, hey MBZ and Bally, I am really enjoying the show and it's great to listen to while playing games. Which leads me to my question. What do you think are good games to play while listening to podcasts or music?
This is a question that is extremely appropriate to me, and I'm a big fan of anything that you can play while listening to podcasts or music. Mainly podcasts on my end. What I'd like to do is still have the game volume on, but much lower in the background. So it's still there. I still kind of have the sounds of things happening, but it's kind of put below the main audio, which I listen to as a podcast. So most recently, as I talked about on the last episode, Rogue Legacy is a fantastic game for podcasts. I think any game which doesn't have a focus on narrative and generally any kind of 2D game I find a lot easier to concentrate on without having to invest my full brain into it, right? I can engage with a 2D game much more easily than a 3D one, just because there's less to think about. There's less things that can happen and go wrong and that kind of thing.
I would say that there's a very big distinction as well between podcasts and music, because obviously with music you're not concentrating, it's just sound going into your ears. Podcasts, there's people are explaining things, stories sometimes, and it's you definitely have to engage your brain more. So I'd say, what game could I think of? Any game with text, you could arguably still play with music in the background, depending on the game and the amount of text and how important the text is. Whereas I'd have to play something like Mario Kart or something that has no narrative, that's very pick up and play, in order to listen to a podcast for me.
Yeah, Mario Kart's a good example. I think another one is, for me anyway, Xenoblade. That is, I mean, there's a lot of story in that game, but it only happens at specific points in time. When you're going through and grinding and leveling up on monsters and stuff, it's not really important what's going on, and you can kind of concentrate on what's happening as well as on something else, so that's a good one. More recently, Titanfall as well, though I have to say Titanfall is much harder to listen to podcasts while playing, because that game is so intense, and you're so focused on just the twitch action of it, that I like having kind of background noise, but more often than not, I will not take it in. I won't really absorb any of that information, right? So
yeah, I mean, recently I played quite a lot of WarioWare with podcasts. It was quite good.
Yeah, that's definitely another one. Yeah. It's really quick reaction times, but the things you're doing are so simple that it doesn't really require a lot of kind of stretching of the brain, I guess.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's good examples there, I feel.
The second part of the email was more about industry. So Elias says, lately a lot of people think that Nintendo is doomed because of the poor sales of the Wii U. Some actually present it as if Nintendo won't be able to make it to the next console generation and will only create games in the future. Which I think, excuse me, is complete bullshit. It is true that Nintendo had big losses last year and the Wii U is already outsold by the PS4, but doesn't mean that Nintendo is doomed. Nintendo actually has $10.5 billion in the bank, which means they could lose $257 million every year until 2052. The current loss admittedly is higher than $257 million, $457 million, I think, but I really don't think it will stay this way. If you're interested in the source of my information, I'll add a link containing containing it. Another fact people often don't think about is that Nintendo still has the 3DS, which together with the Wii U sold more units than the Xbox One, the PS4 and the Vita combined. The 3DS sure has been a lot longer on the market, but it is still a big success. So people should really stop thinking that Nintendo is at the edge of becoming the next Sega. That will be it for my mail. I know it's really long, but since you ran out of questions last episode, I thought it may be enough to talk about in case you don't get any other questions. Please keep those podcasts coming in. I'm always looking forward to them because you're doing such a great job. From Germany, Elias.
Well, yeah, a lot of thoughts there. That was, some good information. The fact that Nintendo have that much money to lose for such a long period of time. I didn't know that statistic in general, but that's really, really interesting to think about. I think the main thing that a lot of people do focus on is the Sega comparison, which I don't think is valid in any way, simply because Sega was coming off of, I feel, 2 failed consoles. Nintendo have come off of one of the most successful consoles of their history. They have so much capital available to them, and they have the ability to go through multiple more home console cycles without basically failing, and still come out fine at the end of it. And as you mentioned, 3DS still kind of bolsters that. So,
and with all this plastic coming, there's definitely not going to be any failures.
Oh, I tell you what, man. Yeah, the GameCube, Wii U adapter, all that nonsense.
Oh, exactly. Yeah.
Selling more GameCube pads, they are going to make all their money back on peripherals. I tell you what, for sure. So, there you go. Thank you for that. It was a very well considered email. But we'll move on to the next one.
This one's from Daniel. Hi guys, love the podcast. With Nintendo more willing to make crossover games such as Hyrule Warriors, Fire Emblem vs Shin Megami Tensei, Professor Layton vs Phoenix Wright, and the rumoured Pokken Fighters?
It was basically a Pokemon fighting game that was trademarked. The name was trademarked, I think, or something along those lines.
How many more crossover games do you think we're going to see? Thanks, Daniel.
This is a really cool question, actually. I think it allows us to speculate on Nintendo and what they're doing with their franchises in terms of allowing merchandising and that kind of thing happening. Because they did say recently in some investor thing that they wanted to branch out, right? I believe they were talking about
I can't remember.
finding ways of making their brands profitable by letting other companies do stuff with them. So I don't know if that means specifically with games, but for certain the trend of the Hyrule Warriors game and stuff kind of similar to that, I don't think it's going to go away anytime soon, simply because Nintendo have had trouble producing software at this current point in time in the generation, and they need companies to help them out. And obviously, Tecmo Koei, Team Ninja, they have a lot of experience developing HD games. We've been doing it the past 7 years on 360 and PS3. So when you have companies like that to help you out, it really is better to kind of try and give your franchises over and try and get software out as opposed to having nothing, right? What do you think they could do with other characters like this?
I was just thinking, it'd be really nice. And it would be to reinvent Mario Kart with more Nintendo roster characters. And not so much even the characters, but the tracks and the worlds that Nintendo have created in other games. There has to be something in that.
Yeah, I mean that's more sort of them internally.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's true. It'd be more Smash Brothers-esque.
Yeah, it would be the kind of Smash Brothers-ification of that franchise. These other ones, Layton versus Wright, I think it's not a Nintendo property. Like, that's Level 5 in Capcom, that's between those guys, but that's still a really awesome thing that's happened. And then, of course, Fire Emblem Cross Shin Megami Tensei, that's Nintendo partnering with Atlus, who I think are a good partner for them and do some good stuff. I don't know what other companies they could work with. I feel that Nintendo can really, at this point, they have no footing in the West. Like, they have no footing with Western developers at all. And if they're going to collaborate with any studios, it's going to be Japanese studios. So it's going to be Konami, it's going to be Capcom. I'd love to see some kind of Metroid Castlevania. Imagine if Nintendo handed Konami the keys to the kingdom and said, make us a game which is called Metroidvania. That would be nuts. That would be fucking nuts.
That would be quite funny, actually.
I think that's a really cool idea, and I definitely think that Castlevania has its roots in Nintendo platforms, and the series is kind of left behind its roots at this point. Its traditional 2D games. And recently, I can't remember his name. It's the creator of the Castlevania franchise. He recently he left Konami, and he's striking out on his own, and he says he wants to create games that are basically in line with the old stuff he made, like Symphony of the Night and those classic 2D Castlevania games, which is really exciting. So I would say Nintendo, approach him, give him the capital, and tell him to make an exclusive Wii U Castlevania game, and I think that would be pretty cool. So those are my thoughts, really. Anything else you can think of?
Have you ever tried a Castlevania game?
No. So this is the thing. It's a big blind spot in my gaming kind of
repertoire.
My repertoire, right? So I've really been interested in the series, and I know that I believe recently one of the Australian classification boards revealed that a Castlevania GBA game is going to be released on Wii U Virtual Console. So I think that's a good way to start, because apparently those GBA games are fantastic. Like, they are the Metroidvania style games. So I could jump in with one of those. The real beginning of the Castlevania series in its kind of that style was Symphony of the Night, which was a PlayStation 1 game. I could probably find that at some place, the original. But I don't know which one I jump in, but I definitely want to jump in. So
cool. Another question from Jack. Hey guys, I have a question about the new Super Smash Bros. Wii U 3DS. I know you're both pretty big fans of this series, as am I, so you've probably been thinking about this too. What kind of moves do you think the new characters will have? Like Greninja, some form of water shuriken variant? Also, what new modes and features would you like to see included in the game? Love the podcast, so please keep it going, Jack.
Well, I'm sure we will find out a whole lot more about that stuff when E3 rolls around, because of course the Smash Bros. Invitational is happening, which I'm super excited about. And there was actually new details revealed about that recently. Well, maybe we should cover this real quickly, Bally, because we haven't touched on this yet. But as people who have watched the Smash Bros. Documentary, we've mentioned multiple times on this podcast, there are some people we recognize there who have been given basically invitations to the tournament, and I'm really excited at this point to watch that. What are you thinking it's going to be like?
I think it'll be. I think it'll be tricky because it's Jeff Keighley hosting the tournament.
Right. Well, he is hosting, but he's not going to be commentating.
Okay,
right?
Yeah.
So the actual matches will be commentated by professional Smash commentators, guys who have been doing this for years and years and know what we're talking about.
You're right.
I don't think Keeley's a problem. I think that he's just the sort of he's a well-known guy, and they wanted to have someone like that to draw in a crowd. And I don't know. I think that he might do an all right job. He's just hosting, so.
I think it'll be really good, actually. I mean, because it's still quite a niche thing, sort of the competitive Smash scene. So for it to be this mainstream and for them to push it right to the front of the stage, quite literally in this way, actually, it's really interesting. I think some people will not be taken by it at all. I was just checking out the rules actually on some YouTube video, and it was saying how I think items are going to be on for all the rounds apart from the final.
Right, yeah, and then the final, I believe, is a 2-on-2 final destination, no items, basically for glory mode, essentially.
Yeah, so I don't know how these pro Smash Brothers players are going to feel about having to use items in most of the rounds. But obviously, I guess Nintendo were like, you got to use the items, you got to show off the new stuff we've put in the game and all this. So I don't know. It's a fine balancing act, and I don't know if they'll pull it off. To be honest, I think it'll be a great spectacle for many people, but
sure,
I don't think everyone will be happy.
Yeah, I really like the idea of it in general, just because of how accommodating Nintendo are being to one of their most hardcore fan bases, who they've basically flat up ignored for the last 15 years. And I really think that it's nice and proper, and it's good for them to actually get involved in this kind of stuff, because so many other companies do and embrace the community, and Nintendo just haven't before, and they finally are doing it. So I'm really excited to see that and see how it pans out. But I guess we'll get to his question.
What modes and features do we want to see?
Yeah. So they obviously revealed that one thing for 3DS, the Smash Run mode, or whatever it's called. I remember Sakurai saying in this stupid thing about how he doesn't want to have any cutscenes in the game because they'll all be put on YouTube beforehand and people will see them, which is just the most backwards thinking in all of fucking history. My God, I can't understand how he can say something like that. It is ridiculous. And I feel like that kind of takes a bit of wind out the sails for excitement for any single player mode, because those were really the best bits. To be honest, what was it called? I can't even remember what it was called, the single player mode. Subspace Emissary, that's it.
I don't really care for it.
No, it was terrible. It was really boring. It was horribly designed. It was essentially Kirby level design with Smash Brothers fighting mechanics, and it wasn't good. The best part of that entire thing was those cutscenes, was those characters coming together and doing those awesome things. I loved that. I thought it was amazing. And the fact that Sakurai shot that down, I think, is just... it's such a shame.
One thing I really want to see, and I'm sure you'll agree, as you've just been playing through many of them, is the event matches that they had in Melee.
Yeah.
I think that'd be just a really great feature to have. I thought.
Did they have event matches in Brawl?
No.
They didn't.
They took it out, and that was a real shame, because even stuff as simple as that they just the clever names on some of the events.
Yeah.
Or things like that, and
7 years, which was Link versus Young Link.
Yeah, and like lots of hidden Nintendo nostalgia just pumped into the titles. They were nice, and I think I'm not, like I said, I'm not a technical expert, but I'm sure it's pretty simple to put them into the game if they could be bothered. And
yeah, you think so?
I honestly don't. I actually would put money on them not being in the game. I think they'll try and focus on other modes. I don't know.
Definitely. There'll be some strong single player content, and they'll probably talk about that at E3. But the other part of his question, real quick, was new moves for some of the new characters. So new characters are people like Greninja, Little Mac, Rosalina, the villager from Animal Crossing, Wii Fit Trainer, Mega Man. I think those are the main. I think those are the ones that have been revealed so far. Brand new characters, anyway. It's hard to kind of consider. A lot of these things have been shown already. There, Greninja's substitute was shown. I'm sure he has some kind of water shuriken move. The villager has his bug net, and he can pick things up and throw them back out like his pockets.
And he can plant and grow a tree on an upper ledge, and then cut it down, and the tree just falls down on someone. It's hilarious.
Yeah, it's neat. I feel like Rosalina we haven't seen a huge amount from. The one thing I remember about her from Galaxy is her storybook thing. So maybe they implement that as some kind of Jigglypuff-esque healing move. Like
I think Game Explain talked about it, as I always say.
Right.
We've seen the full movesets for all of these characters. Like they've actually worked it out, like what the side B, down B, up B moves are.
Okay.
So for Rosalina, I think like her side B is to throw Luma.
Yeah.
Or something, and then her down B is to like do a move where both the Luma and her attack. It's weird. She's a really weird character, actually, Rosalina.
Yeah, I'll be interested to try her out. But yeah, a couple of thoughts there. We'll obviously find out more when the game comes out. But yeah, sure, Smash, exciting. It's going to be good. So there we go. I think we're going to close this out here, have a shorter listener mail segment, because we have some other mails pertaining to E3, and that will, of course, be in the next segment. So thank you for writing in, everyone. We will need some more mail, though, and I'm sure that you guys will have a lot to talk about when E3 rolls around. So give us reactions to announcements, all that good stuff. Anything you want to talk about, send the emails to our email address, which is, Bally?
NYPPQuestions@gmail.com.
There we go. So we're going to take a break here, and we will return on the other side with some E3 predictions and some thoughts on the upcoming show.
Hype train!
Hype train!
Several games featuring Luigi that we released in 2013. So we'd like to call it the Ear of Luigi. 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 Of Luigi.
Luigi time!
The Ear of Luigi. Of Luigi.
Luigi number one! Oh yeah!
All these years after his leading debut,
Oh yeah!
he is still timid after all these years.
A tough guy!
Luigi is leading very soundly, isn't he?
Okie dokie!
So why is he sleeping? Let's play a trick on him. The Ear of Luigi.
Oh yeah!
The Ear of Luigi. The Ear of Luigi.
Yahoo!
The Ear of Luigi. Of Luigi. Ear of Luigi.
Luigi!
The Ear of Luigi. The Ear of Luigi.
Gotcha!
The Ear of Luigi. Of Luigi.
Oh!
Welcome back to part 3 of Now We're Playing with Power. So yeah, in a few days' time, there's going to be this little thing called E3 happening in LA. So we thought we'd talk a bit about it and specifically make a few predictions. But before we start all that, NBZ's got a listener mail to read.
Yes, so let's kick this off. There's an email from Daniel Bunzelmeyer, and he writes, "Hello again, guys. I won't start the email by complimenting you on the podcast like everyone else. I'll sneak it in when you least expect it.
Trojan
I've writ-
horse.
Yeah, I've written in a couple of times, and when Bally read my emails, I was more excited than NBZ's gastrointestinal system at an Indian restaurant on a train. Stupidity aside, you said you needed more mail, and I have delivered. At Bally's request, I've climbed aboard the E3 hype train! Luckily, this train isn't taking me home after eating curry. It's taking me to the land of BO and wireless interference. I feel the news and anticipation has been somewhat slow and a little lax, which makes me all the more anticipatory that something big must be coming. Honestly, I think this would be a great time for Nintendo to capitalize. The new consoles are out now. Everyone is paying attention to Sony and Microsoft. Love the podcast. Keep it up. Told you wouldn't expect it. Nintendo should throw the most ridiculous, headline-grabbing show they can possibly dream up in their insane Japanese minds. What do you guys think about it? I know they're not doing a press conference, which is fine by me. The language barrier may actually hurt them more in an uncontrolled environment. But with a lot of development hours going into getting the consoles ready for last year's release, I think Nintendo has a chance to make a splash at an otherwise potentially quiet E3. Thoughts? And he goes on after that to give some thoughts on Tomodachi Life himself, which we will maybe cover next week when we have time, but I think we want to kind of focus on E3 in this segment, so let's get to it. So a lot of people, Bally, a lot of people come out of Judges Week, which if you don't know, Judges Week is essentially what a lot of the press get invited to go to before E3, so they can see some new games and be ready to write impressions and do stuff for their kind of Game of Shows awards or whatever. And a lot of the kind of the talk coming out of Judges Week from people I heard, like Jeff Gersman on Giant Bomb, and then I was listening to Garnet and John Davison's show, and there was a dude staying with Garnet who had gone to Judges Week and kind of had low impressions of what was coming out. So I don't think there is a huge amount of excitement of new things happening at Sony or Microsoft's E3 press conferences. Do you think Nintendo can make a splash here this year at E3, Bally?
I think absolutely, because they, regardless of how badly their company is doing with the Wii U, you can't deny how big and how much respect franchises such as Zelda, even Metroid, have across the platforms, across the game's media. Everyone, there are very few people out there who don't rate Zelda at all, for example.
Sure.
Everyone, regardless of whether they like the current Zeldas, has great respect for especially games like Ocarina of Time. So I think that Nintendo always have a card up their sleeves that has the potential to impress everyone in the games media, not just the Nintendo fans.
Definitely. And the thing that I like about Nintendo is that they usually are masters of the hype, right? They have had some of the biggest moments in E3 history, notably Twilight Princess, and other big reveals such as that. The other M1 was a big one as well. Those are things that people associate with E3, I think, more than anything else. I think it's a real shame that Nintendo aren't doing a press conference, and we've talked about this, but the way that they kind of build up the announcement from the stage show is so synonymous with E3 and E3 culture in general that it's a real shame that they are kind of shirking. But there's definitely room here, I feel, for Nintendo to kind of break through and get some big announcements going. I'm not sure that there's going to be anything groundbreaking because, we always get our hopes up and then they never quite deliver. But I think that there is a chance here for them to proverbially win the show. People always talk about afterwards, who won E3? And, a lot of the time it kind of gets thrown around.
When would you last say that the games media agreed that Nintendo won E3?
I would say that was 2010, which was the year of the 3DS's reveal. It was the year they had GoldenEye on Wii, they had Donkey Kong Kirby's Epic Yarn, they had Kid Icarus Uprising revealed, and they had Other M, the first reveal of Other M. That was a big smattering of awesome Nintendo titles, and I'd say that was the last time they really won it. Since then, 2011 was the Skyward Sword in its full glory. I believe 2010 was like the initial Skyward Sword reveal, but then you had it in 2011 in its full glory, and then after that, nothing really special. There was the whole Nintendo Land debacle, which you remember.
Yes.
So yeah, it's been a while, I think, since they've done a big show, and I think that this may be the one, especially if they have Metroid and Zelda there. Those are two key franchises and two ones that people are excited about. It's a chance. There's a chance. So that's all good and well, and we're hoping that they're going to bring some good stuff, but we also want to kind of speculate here, right? And we're going to jump in with some predictions of what we think may be revealed and shown at E3 from Nintendo's side. So let's kick it off, shall we? Bali, do you want to give me your first prediction?
Sure. So my first prediction apparently has already been announced to be discussed, or it's something shown at E3, and that's Zelda on Wii U.
Right.
But specifically, what I think they're going to do with this game is going to go back to the graphical style similar to the I want to say tech demo. Was it a tech demo?
Yeah, it was like an interactive movie kind of thing. I guess interactive cutscene is a good way of putting it.
So I think they will go back to that graphical style, so similar to
Right.
Twilight Princess, Ocarina to some degree. But ultimately, I think that the game will actually look even better than that tech demo, and that's for the simple reason that I think they're going to continue with this bloom effect that you can see so clearly in games such as Wind Waker HD and also Mario Kart. We should have mentioned that when we were talking about the visuals, but I feel like they have a great artistic team at Nintendo. They have done for ages, and they've got great looking games, often regardless of the hardware they're working with. And I think that the potential of what they can deliver and for a realistic looking Zelda is going to be substantial.
Yeah. So, I mean, Zelda Wii U has, I guess, been teased that it's going to be in some form at the show. Like, they haven't said that there's going to be a trailer or there's going to be gameplay or something. Anuma has simply said that he would talk about it or it would be mentioned, right?
Yeah.
So that could be as cursory as saying, we are working on the next Zelda Wii U. But I'd like to think that they're in a position where if they do that, they're really on the back foot, honestly. I don't think that's a good idea. But yeah, going back to your point on the art style from kind of the tech demo, I like that, but I think that they're going to be kind of following tradition and step away from the original kind of concept, like what happened with Wind Waker, right? Where they pulled a 180 and they were like, "Oh, there was this tech demo, but by the way, it looks like this," and then the internet erupted
Yeah.
and went nuts.
I mean, I agree. I think they'll pull away from traditional means within Zelda, but I don't think that will be in relation to graphics.
Okay.
They've already said stuff about changing the dungeon order, and they
Right.
did that with Link Between Worlds, and I think they'll
Sure.
continue with elements of that. It'll be interesting to see how Link traverses across the world, because that's obviously changed a number of times across different games. So I think there will be something different, but I just think the graphical style will be similar to what was shown before.
Yeah, I really actually like that style a lot, because what it did was blend. It kind of took the realistic Link from Twilight Princess, but gave him more of a fantasy style look, you know?
What game are you talking about? The tech demo?
The tech demo, yeah.
Yes.
I felt like gave that Twilight Princess kind of base model a more fantasy and kind of cartoony look without pushing it as far as Wind Waker, or without going as kind of artistic as Skyward Sword. It was this nice middle ground,
Yeah.
which looked really good.
Like in the same way as the GameCube perhaps had less power but still made Wind Waker look incredible. That's even without a remake. The GameCube original still looks incredible. I think that it'll be similar in what you're saying, in that it'll be ever so slightly it'll be realistic, but it'll be ever so slightly cartoonized in the similar way to the demo, like you said.
Yeah.
But they'll do that in order to make it look better.
Yeah, and that's what Nintendo do a lot of the time. They use art style to prevent their, graphical fidelity from coming off as, worse than their competitors, right? They really leverage art style much more, and it works for them. It works extremely well, and they have done it many times over the years. So the other thing I just want to quickly mention regarding Zelda Wii U is that, as you mentioned, they want to change up the kind of the structure of the game, like they did with Link Between Worlds, and I believe it was in the Nintendo Direct from last February where Anuma was saying, it was after he'd announced Wind Waker HD, or just before when they were talking about the Zelda Wii U game, that he was thinking about ways to implement like multiplayer into Zelda. He did mention like multiplayer or using more than one person in a Zelda game. I'm not sure if that's an idea that they will continue with, but it was an interesting note that he pointed out there, and I'm kind of curious as to whether that will make a return.
That would be
all.
interesting.
Yeah.
Online co-op?
Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah.
Sign me up.
Mind
Sign
blown.
me up.
Yeah.
Indeed. So yeah, good prediction. It's a sure bet.
I was going to say, I should add, I don't think any showing or demos or any anything related to Hyrule Warriors will have any effect on whether they show Zelda Wii U and what
Right,
they show
okay.
of Zelda Wii U. I think that it's such an important internal franchise that they'll have a set date when they want to do things, how they want to show the world this new game, and regardless of what anyone's doing with Link in another game like Hyrule Warriors, I think they're just going to go full steam ahead and show it off.
Sure. So there you go. My first prediction relates to Metroid, and it is 2D Metroid, which is my prediction for Nintendo's E3 for the last bloody 10 years. But I feel like now is the time. It's been 4 years since the last Metroid game. It's been like 14 years since the last 2D Metroid game, or I think maybe closer to 10. But still, it's a long damn time.
Since Zero Mission.
Zero Mission, I believe, was 2003, 2004 maybe, so around 10 years or 11 years.
Okay.
And there has not been a Metroid game on 3DS. I think that's the one key franchise they're missing, and I don't think that they want to go back and do the Metroid Prime Hunters style thing they did on DS, because for one thing, that you'd have to have the horrible touchscreen controls again, because there's no second analog stick, and I think that they would put more resources into doing a 3D game on the Wii U rather than trying to do a 3DS one. So my prediction is 2D Metroid on 3DS, and additionally, I think that the mystery 3DS game, which they said they are going to have a 90-minute developer roundtable for, is going to be this game. I think that is what is happening. They said it's going to be a 3DS game. It's something they haven't announced yet, and it's going to be concentrated on. I think it's the perfect title for them to really dig into and let people know about. So that's what I'm staking out, Bally. What do you think?
In the same way that you've said this for a number of years, I'm struggling to find why this year is different.
Okay.
But at the same time, I'd love for that to happen, and I think there will be a number of different voices around the internet and perhaps within Nintendo that would agree with us that it's about time they get a new 2D Metroid and stick it on the 3DS.
I like to think that the year in which, Bally, you have been introduced to the 2D Metroid, that
the stars
Nintendo
will align and
right.
the 2D Metroid will come hither.
Exactly. Now that finally you've been welcomed into the great franchise that they are going to.
I certainly hope so.
Yeah.
Why 3DS and not perhaps Wii U?
Well, the reason I say that is because I feel that Wii U needs a killer kind of big budget, amazing looking game to really get people going and frothing at the mouth. And a 2D Metroid, while it would be cool to kind of go that way on Wii U, because they certainly have gone back to the 2D style in a lot of their console games with New Super Mario Bros., with Donkey Kong, with Kirby. I feel like if they did that with Metroid, and people would be kind of annoyed, right? That it wasn't a 3D Metroid, it wasn't like a Prime. So I think that's why I'm saying 3DS, and there is now a tradition after Super Metroid that all these games are kind of, the 2D games anyway, are being put on handheld. So I think it kind of has a home there.
I'd also say that there's already quite a few 2D great games on Wii U that maybe there's no need for yet another one.
Sure. So yeah, there you go. That's really my reasoning behind it.
Well,
but I guess talking about Metroid, you have a Metroid prediction of your own.
Yeah, so in line with your argument that you feel they'd want a big Wii U title to be visually impressive, grab all the media, I think a 3D Metroid on Wii U is the game to do that.
So I'm gonna go with 2D. You're gonna go with 3D.
Yep. It's got. I mean, if we both say Metroid, it must happen. Like it just.
Right. One of us has to be right.
Exactly. I mean, it's a bit weird that there was a 3D Metroid on 2DS, but no 2D one. And likewise, I think it might be weird if there would have been a 2D one on Wii U, but not 3DS. So I'm gonna be more orthodox, like you, 2D with the handheld and 3D on the console.
Right.
It'll look stunning. It won't move any more. It'll be separate to the Prime trilogy.
So you think that they're going to drop the name Prime?
I think they will drop the name Prime, but still reference the Prime trilogy in the story.
Okay, interesting.
Now, I've just bought Metroid Prime 1 for the GameCube, and I'm going to be playing that in the next while. But I think that the Prime trilogy, while I don't know the story, I don't know anything about the story, I think it'd be stupid for them to ignore that story altogether. I think this is going to be what Retro has been working on. Now, I know that they, as you said, they've not had much of a gap since Donkey Kong, but I feel like maybe they're going to show something.
If anything, if it is Retro working on it, and if they're showing anything, it's literally just a 2-second thing or a logo. Like there's hardly anything they can do with the amount of development time they've had at this point. I would say that. But actually, interestingly, I was going to kind of ask you whether you thought this was more likely, or whether a Prime HD remake was more likely. Because for my money, I would say that it's more likely they're going to talk about a Prime HD remake than a new Metroid Prime at this point.
I'd be a little disappointed if there was an HD remake, but
just because you bought
just because I've bought the original and like, oh god, here we go. That would be 10 quid down the drain. But anyway, I think that there's a good shout that there would be an HD remake. It was obviously, I think Wind Waker's showing that Nintendo can do it very well.
Right.
It's considering the number of Wii U's that have sold, I think Wind Waker's done fine. And it would be a shame. It'd be nice. nice to have some originality with Metroid, because we've, like you said, we've not had any for 4 years.
Definitely.
And it's arguably one of their biggest franchises, and I don't know why they've shunned it away for so
Well,
long.
it's definitely to do with sales,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
Yeah.
It may be a beloved franchises by the fans, and to be honest, like amongst Nintendo's hardcore, I think it is their most beloved franchise. But when it comes to not critical, I mean commercial success,
Yeah.
It never hits. It never hits. So
I should add that I don't think there will be any more emphasis on shooting or multiplayer. And while it will be a first-person game with shooting elements, I don't think I think it'll stick to that sense of exploration and adventure above shooter.
okay, fair enough.
I hope.
Yeah, well, indeed. So I guess we'll go on to my
Number
second prediction.
no, you're number 2.
I'm a number 2. So my number 2 relates to the NFC figures, and my opinion on what they're going to do with that is they've already kind of said they're going to do multiple game titles. And I think that one of the game titles they will use the NFC figures with will be a brand new IP, and it will introduce a brand new character into Nintendo's roster. And this game is going to be the one that Miyamoto was working on. This is going to be his new IP. It's going to introduce a new character and is going to use the NFC figures.
And that new character will be in Smash Brothers.
No. So it's very multi-layered here. I'm going kind of really niche as I possibly can, but I definitely think, just generally, that there is going to be one of the NFC games is going to start something brand new, and I know that, well, they have kind of made it leaked that Smash Brothers is going to be compatible with the NFC figures, right? And we know that there will be multiple other games, maybe 2 more they'll show. So I don't know. I think one of them could be a Smash Brothers-esque thing, similar to Skylanders and Disney Infinity, but with a different kind of gameplay using the figures, and then another one with a new IP. Bit crazy, bit weird. What do you think, Bally? What do you think about NFC?
I think the idea of a new franchise being NFC is strong, and obviously with Miyamoto's whatever he's been working on being hyped for so long,
right?
Why not get it out this year and link it to NFC? And yeah, why not? I think there's a chance. I mean, what on earth could that game be like?
I don't know, but the thing about Miyamoto is that he is so well known for the iconic characters he creates, right? And I think in recent times, with the advent of the Wii generation, a lot of his ideas relating to Wii Sports and that kind of stuff has sidelined the idea of the iconic character and is more focused on the gameplay.
Yes.
Because there's, the Miis, as great as they aren't really, some grand new character that he's made. And, Miyamoto started at Nintendo as an artist, and, he created the drawings and the artwork for those original characters, for Zelda and for Mario and all these things. So I think that he has kind of a yearning to go back to that and try something like that, and I have no idea what it will be. Maybe it'll be another talking animal or some crazy thing like Star Fox, or who knows? Who knows what it could be?
What was the last big character he created, would you say?
I would say
Olimar?
Pikmin. Yeah, Olimar and Pikmin. The Pikmin more so, I guess, than Olimar, because Olimar's not really...
They make him quite faceless on purpose to emphasize
Sure.
the emotions of the Pikmin.
The emotions.
The emotions.
Yes, indeed. So yeah, I mean, there's not much more I can expand on that, honestly, because I don't really know what it will be, but there's the general idea. You get it. You know what I'm saying. So, how about it, Bally? What is your final prediction?
So, this one is just kind of trying to tie together loose ends.
Sure.
And at the same time, it's my heart beating right through the middle trying to get this game to happen. And so, let me start off by saying, Nintendo released Nintendo Land with the launch of the Wii U, and I've got this rosy idea in my mind that Nintendo like to keep up their franchises. So when you look at Nintendo Land, it was it's notable to say stuff like Kid Icarus or particularly Star Fox was left out of the games within Nintendo Land.
Right, the franchises just weren't present.
So for whatever reason. But my idea is that they want to try and revisit those core franchises, which they've obviously believe are quite powerful because they stuck them all together in this one game. And that game is F-Zero. It was one of the games in Nintendo Land, and even though it was one of the games in Nintendo Land, there hasn't been an F-Zero game for, I can't even think. Like, the last one was on Game Boy Advance, I think.
Yeah.
GP Legends, I want to say. And that was, I think, maybe 2006. A long time ago. And I feel like now's the time to revisit it. They've got amazing hardware. There's never been an online F-Zero game. And
Right.
a Wii U F-Zero game, it'll look fantastic, it'll play well. I don't even care if they skimp out on the single player modes. I just want to play F-Zero on Wii U, and with online it'd be great. And likewise with tying the loose ends together, Captain Falcon has been in every single Smash Brothers up until this point, yet he has not been announced yet for the most recent Smash Brothers games. So now's the time where they reinvent him, redesign him, maybe make him a different color than blue or something like that. Well, that wouldn't make sense.
Radical change.
That wouldn't
here,
make
colours.
sense with the Blue Falcon, but
Sure.
So maybe not that radical, but they'll change him in some way, perhaps, or maybe something very minor, and then say, right, here he is in Smash Brothers. This is his new design, and that same design of Captain Falcon is going to be in this new F-Zero game. It's going to be coming out this Christmas, and that's why we put the F-Zero in Nintendo Land, because it's still dear to our hearts. And all you haters, stop hating, because here comes F-Zero, and that's what I'm really hoping for. And to be honest, there's a chance. You never know.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I want to believe. I want to believe, Bali. I want this for you. I also would love to jump in with a new F-Zero, because I've never really gotten into the franchise. I have the Super Nintendo game, which is hard as balls, really tough.
And maximum velocity on the
Right, that's on
program.
that's on the ambassador program, sure. I think it's really too perfect, to be honest. The fact that they haven't announced Captain Falcon, and the fact that there is kind of this paper trail being left that it's in Nintendo Land, and kind of conspiratory things happening, right? It's almost too perfect to the degree that I don't think Nintendo would do it, but I'd say there's a shot, right? There's a shot that it could happen, especially if at their E3 presentation they are going to announce Smash Brothers characters and say Captain Falcon's in, and then segue that into a new F-Zero. That would be just the perfect storm.
I think there's a strong argument that they're going to try and link an unannounced Smash Brothers character to a new game, and whether that's
Right.
Metroid with a new villain, or perhaps even a new enemy in Zelda for the Wii U. I think there's because we've not had Ganondorf, and Samus and Zero Suit Samus are still the only only Metroid characters in Smash Brothers. I feel there's a really strong chance that they try and link it somehow, because
Right.
Smash Brothers only comes out once a generation, and
Exactly.
why not use it to the max?
Yeah, and a lot of people speculating that Ridley's going to be the character for Metroid,
that would be
and,
great, wouldn't it?
and that might happen. So, a lot of potential there. So, anyway, I think we'll move to my last prediction, which I say is a bit of a weird one, but it's basically, so you know that they announced Fire Emblem Cross Shin Megami Tensei.
Okay.
This game is developed by Atlas, and it's
When's
going
that
to
coming
be...
out?
No idea. They've said nothing about it, which is why I think they're going to re-mention it at E3. And I think that people have the wrong idea about this game. I think people are assuming that because it's Shin Megami Tensei and it's Fire Emblem, they're just going to mash up the gameplay styles, and it's going to be some kind of strategy RPG thing, where, you know, you just go over maps and do all that stuff. But I think that Shin Megami Cross Fire Emblem is going to be a fighting game. and I think that it'll be in a similar style to something like, Street Fighter X Tekken and these fighting Capcom, Marvel vs. Capcom, these weird crossovers. I think they're going to take the characters from these franchises, pit them against each other in a fighting game, and I think that would be fucking insane. So there you go, there's my bomb drop. Any words, Bally?
None.
None.
I don't know.
Silenced.
I mean, the fact that they've not described anything about the game other than the name, right?
Yeah.
I think then, yeah, why not?
There's a possibility.
Nintendo
right?
haven't really. Well, Smash Brothers is kind of a fighting game, but they've not really made like.
It's a
many
much more
fighting-
traditional kind of fighting game, is what I'm saying. Like, it would
Yeah.
be like a Tekken, like a 2D kind of HP bars on either side.
Would it be a bit like Soul Calibur in terms of emphasis on weapons?
Right, well, it kind of would have to be if you're using Fire Emblem characters,
True.
because they all use weaponry, right? And then you have magical characters as well. I'm not too familiar with Shin Megami Tensei, but I'm sure that kind of the similar thing applies there. So, if it was like a Soul Calibur style fighting game, I would be all over that. Oh my lord, I would be totally in for it. So, there's my wacko prediction.
I guess you
Hope
never
can
know.
handle it. You never know. You never know. So, that is, I guess that's going to do it.
I was
but-
going to say, don't we have one more question?
Yes, we do indeed. So we have another email which came to us from Ryan, and he was kind of asking an E3 related thing, but more kind of like crazy stuff. And he says, "Hey guys, you may have been asked this before, but for each of you personally, what would be the best thing that could possibly get announced at this year's E3? It doesn't even have to be a realistic option. It could be something crazy like Pokemon Cross Zelda, or a sequel like Banjo-Kazooie. So, Bally, let me ask you, what is your bonkers, nuts, never in a million years will happen, but give it a shot prediction for Nintendo's E3?
So it's an asymmetrical strategy game.
Yep.
Advance Wars versus Fire Emblem.
Advance Wars vs. Fire Emblem. My god, that would just... It would be like the perfect game for the crossover.
We'd both love it, and we can play it absolutely tons against each other. And I could be the Advance Wars characters, you could be the Fire Emblem characters.
Yep. Online modes.
Online modes. This is on 3DS, I should add.
Time travel, Bally. It would have to have time travel, though. Your favorite thing, right?
No time travel. They're just different
Well,
worlds. That's different. Totally different.
Oh, okay. So parallel dimensions is what
Yes,
you're saying.
yes.
Right. Okay, I see.
The
So we're
gu-
having a parallel dimension.
The guys in Advance Wars invented some kind of world hole.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. World hole, and
Yeah,
then they jump through,
and then
all of a
and then they
sudden-
send all their tanks and shit through it, and then they're like, oh shit,
Yep.
Martha and Roy are attacking us. And
Yep.
we got to fight back, and it's going to be super asymmetrical.
Well, there you go. Man, I'm trying to think of something, but I'm coming up blank. I'm gonna say Metroid. It's all about this cross, isn't it? You got to go one thing,
Yeah.
cross another thing.
They're all hype these days.
I'm gonna say Metroid Cross F-Zero,
Yes.
where you race in Samus's ship to different planets and locations, and maybe a bit of Star Fox in there as well, going through space to planets. Man, those three franchises have a kinship, I feel. Metroid, Star Fox, and F-Zero. They're all kind of futuristic. They're all very spacey. They all kind of have vehicles attached to them. How about a triple dip? Put them all in one. What a bananas nuts cake that would be.
Is it a racer?
It's a racer, which is also a Metroid style game. So you go to planets, and then when you get on the planet, that's when the Metroid gameplay commences. You see what I'm saying?
I see.
So that's how it goes. So
Okay.
so there you go. That's our drug taking segment over, and I guess that is going to basically close out the show. So thank you for all the emails and everything, and I highly suggest you keep those coming, especially with E3 round the corner. We want to hear from you guys, so if you have any thoughts, questions, concerns, comments, and the like regarding the announcements that come out of E3 regarding Nintendo, then do feel free to send those to us. We will, I'm sure, be talking about it for a few shows to come. So you can send those to our email address, which is Bally.
NYPPQuestions@gmail.com.
And we're hoping there'll be some bombshells that you can discuss with us. So there we go.
Remember to keep reviewing us on iTunes.
You should do that. Yes, review us on iTunes. I think we actually had one recently, and I can't remember the dude. I'm
gonna find it now.
You can go ahead and find it. It's on the American iTunes store.
So we had a great review from Bluefire37. So yeah, if you're a fan of the show, if you listen every fortnight and you want to help us out, then we greatly appreciate if you get on down to iTunes. Even if you don't listen to iTunes, you can still go and find us on iTunes and give us a great review. And yeah, be honest. Tell us what you think. Do you like it? Do you hate it? What do we need to improve on? What's going well?
Indeed. All that great stuff. Thank you for doing that review. And we will basically close this out with some plugs. So, Bally, why don't you go ahead and give us your twits?
Yeah, follow me on Twitter at Ballyman91, BALLYMAN91, and that's my same name on the Miiverse. I've been posting a bit of Mario Kart, and yeah, been tweeting a bit as well.
I have indeed also. I've been posting some Mario Kart, some screenshots, stuff, and just random drawings because I feel like it on the
Look
Miiverse.
out for the next Mario Kart tournament.
Do indeed. So you can follow me and find out about all that stuff when it's happening on my Twitter, which is @Lordnbz, and Lordnbz is the Miiverse as well. That's going to be it for our show this week. Thank you very much for listening, and be prepared, get ready. The E3 hype train is rolling into the station. We're going to be here next week with some good old chat about what the hell Nintendo have been doing at E3. So prepare yourselves, and
hopefully we won't need the violins.
Hopefully not. Hopefully not. Gonna wipe away those tears. They're not needed. They have no place here.
All our predictions are going to come true.
We hope so.
God damn it.
God damn it. Alright guys, thank you, and we will wrap you again next week.
See you next time. I went for a run this morning, and I saw this little kid get an ice cream, and the second he got it, he just dropped it onto the floor. And then, like, literally about a minute later, I was running along, and this guy just outstretched his arm, and I just ran into his arm, and his ice cream just went.
Are you serious?
I just kept running.
Why would you do? It's like a hit and run. It's like a hit and run, only with ice cream. Bally, you murdered it. You murdered that ice cream.
I don't know. His arm got pushed back, and I didn't see whether the ice cream flew out of it, so it might have been fine. But he just, like, suddenly the speed his arm just extended. I was like, what? And, oh god. It was really crowded. It was like South Bank.
Well, there you go.
I'm in the wrong there, aren't I?
You are in the wrong. I'm not gonna lie.
Well, I tell you what, I'm gonna have karma.
Mhm.
I'm gonna have it next time I have an ice cream. A sprinter's just gonna sprint right through my arm.
And then you just curse him out, but all he does is run in the distance.
Yeah.
Just left standing there, cold.
I waved my arm and said, like, sorry, but I don't know. I needed to keep up my pace.
Fair enough.
Exactly.
You gotta get training for that marathon, man.
Exactly.
Get training. All right.
Sorry, I digress.
Let's do this bullshit.